Hello everyone, this is Revati for Scrappiness. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I have a beautiful, clean and simple birthday card for you guys using products from the Be My Valentine release. Oh yes, you heard it right. We will be creating a birthday card using products from the Valentine's release. For our card project today, I kept it really simple with a bunch of die cutting, ink blending and lots of simple coloring. Before we get started, I would really appreciate if you could subscribe to the Cat Scrappiness channel and make sure to hit the bell icon so that you get notified each time we post a new video. Well, here's a look at the products that I'll be using to create our card today. I'll be using the Butter Me Up die set, which coordinates perfectly with the Butter Me Up stamp set. This die set contains 5 dies, two of which are the body of the toast. Then we have a center which could either be the butter or the jelly for your toast, and then we have two faces. And this stamp set contains some beautiful and adorable sentiments which would pair perfectly with the die set. I will die cut these images using some plain white cardstock. I am using a 100 pound cardstock here, and I like to secure my dies using some temporary purple tape onto the cardstock. I ran this sandwich through my Cricut Cuttlebug machine. Now I want two toasts for my card front. So here I have two of those larger toast pieces, two of those smaller, and just one centerpiece which would go on just one of the toasts. And I cut out those little faces using some black cardstock. Well, I like to use white cardstock when I'm die cutting so that I can color in based on what I like and the intensity of the color I can manipulate with it. Well, you can also cut out these pieces using some colored cardstock. I'm doing some very simple ink blending here, nothing fancy, no ombre effect or no shading. Well, I am using a very light shade of brown for the inner piece of my toast, and for the outer edges of the toast I have a darker shade of brown. The both the pieces of toast I have colored using the same set of colors. Now whenever I'm ink blending, I like to protect my work surface. So here I am using a rough piece of printer paper just to hold the die cut pieces so that all of that color does not get over my work surface. I love how this ink blending turned out. I love how the darker and the lighter shade of browns perfectly complement each other. I did the same for both of my toasts, and then once I'm done with that, we can move on to the jelly for our toast. Well, I'm calling it jelly. You could also call it butter or maybe peanut butter or some hazelnut spread or whatever you like on your toast. I'm using a shade of pink to color in or well ink blend in my jelly piece. If you're not into ink blending or that's not one of your favorite techniques, like I said, you could use colored cardstock instead, or you could also use your alcohol markers, color pencils, or watercolors to color in these tiny little die cut pieces. Well, now that my focal point is ready, I wanted to work on my card base. Here I have a top folding note card. I chose yellow color because, well, it's my resolution for 2023 that I'll be using a lot more color on my card. So, well, if not the card front, I decided, well, my card base can be a lot more colorful. I will keep my card front fairly simple. It'll be just this plain white cardstock where I will be fixing these focal point images and adding a sentiment to finish off my card. Well, at this point, I was deciding whether it should be a top folding card or a side folding card, and I think the side folding would be a lot better in terms of arranging these focal point images and for my sentiment. This Butter Me Up stamp set does have some really adorable sentiments. I will be making a birthday card, so I have a toast to your birthday sentiment, but you could definitely use a lot of these sentiments, mix and match them up to create a beautiful card front. To stamp my sentiment, I took the white panel into my stamping tool and held the focal points, the die cut focal points in place so that I could determine the place and the position of my sentiment. Once I was satisfied with the placement and the alignment of the sentiment, I went ahead and black heat embossed the sentiment onto this white cardstock. Well, I used VersaFine Onyx Black ink and poured over some clear embossing powder over it. Don't forget to use your anti-static powder tool every time you hit emboss any kind of sentiment, stamped images, or any other thing onto your card front. Well, it was at this point that I decided that I didn't want this front panel to be just plain white. So I'm lightly blending some yellow ink all around the front panel. Well, I am randomly blending the ink just to cover the focal point. I will not be blending the entire background. It will just be behind the focal point just to add some kind of shine to our die cut images. Now we can assemble our die cut images. For that, I will be assembling both the layers of our toast using some liquid glue. I like to use liquid glue on my die cut images because that gives me some wiggle room so that I can adjust and make sure the die cut pieces are perfectly aligned over each other. I find it a little difficult when I'm using double-sided tape or any other kind of glue other than liquid glue. For the jelly piece, I thought some dimension would be perfect. So here I am using some small pieces of foam squares on the back of the jelly piece. Well, you'll see that this jelly piece does not have a definite shape, so you need not be worried about the orientation or alignment of this piece on the front of your toast. Now that our die cut pieces are ready, all we have to do is assemble them onto our card front. Well, again here, I will be using the same exact liquid glue to align these pieces onto the card front. I definitely love the yellow popping out from the background of our card panel. It definitely gives some shine to our card. Well, you could also pop up these toasts using some foam tape, but I chose to lay them directly onto the card front. Just like I die cut these toast pieces using white cardstock, I used some scrap piece of black cardstock to cut out those tiny little faces that were provided in the die. So here I'm using my Cat Scrappiness reverse tweezers. These are really fine tip tweezers and would help me so much in aligning these pieces and holding these pieces. I used my fine tip barely art glue to apply small amount of glue on these pieces. Well, this is one technique I like to do. Another technique I like to add these small tiny little die cut pieces is, well, if you look here, the black pieces are kept within the die itself. So what I'm doing here is applying some glue on these pieces, and then I will align it onto my toast, and using a pointy tool I will just press down these die cut pieces onto my toast. Now that our card front is absolutely ready, all we have to do is assemble it onto a note card. I used some foam tape to assemble this beautiful card front onto a note card. Well, this was intended to be a top folding card, but I like it this way. It would be a side folding note card, but there's no problem. I love it anyway. That's one of the best parts that I love about card making. You start off completely different and then you end up with a product that is more beautiful than you actually imagined or planned for. I'm really loving how this card turned out. Well, once I was done with the card front, it was time for me to work on the inside panel and on the envelope of our card. I used a same white colored cardstock for the inside of my card, but I wanted to add something which would tie up the card front with the inside panel. So here I'm using the negative piece of the die cut toast, and I will be using it as a stencil. I use the same light brown and the dark brown shades to ink blend onto this. For the toast, I used the light brown shade, and here I have the black scrap piece of cardstock where I made the faces, and I will be using that to make the faces on this stenciled piece. I used some double-sided tape and adhered this panel onto the inside of the card, and well, with that, we can call this card done. I am really in love with this cute and adorable die set and the coordinating stamp set. Well, you could also use this stamp with the Happily Ever After die set, again by Cat Scrappiness. There is a sentiment on the stamp set which says, "You are the avocado to my toast," which, well, is perfect for these two sets. You could use both of the toasts and an avocado, or just one toast, one avocado, mix and match, and create a beautiful project. I had so much fun creating this project, and I hope you had fun watching the video and got inspired and will definitely give it a try. All the supplies that I used in the project today will be found linked in the description box below. I would love for you to become a subscriber to the Cat Scrappiness channel, and if you do subscribe or are already a subscriber, please make sure to hit the bell icon so that you don't miss the next time we post. Also, hit the like button and let us know in the comments down below if you have any ideas or suggestions. Also, if you'd like to share your creations, please tag us on our Instagram. There's a link to that in the description box below. Thank you again for joining me today. Until next time, stay safe.